Hi, this is Lane8492. This is the second of two true crime story videos I'm doing today. This is another case here in the state of Florida. This is of a Florida death row inmate and suspected serial killer Daniel Owen Conahan Jr. You see, Daniel Owen Conahan Jr. has been linked to about maybe a dozen murders. His crimes were of transients seeking employment and gay men in Charlotte County, Florida. It was an area where their bodies were found, which got this killer called the Hogtrail Killer. Now, I remember this story when it was put on court TV. That was before it became True TV. Daniel Owen Conahan Jr. was only going on trial for the murder of Richard Allen Montgomery. And for that, he was sentenced to death. He was born in May of 1950. Daniel Owen Conahan Jr. was born in May of 1954 up in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, one of the victims of Daniel Owen Conahan was never identified, so he was just put as John Doe. That's what they put, like John Doe or Jane Doe of a victim who's never been identified. Now, on February 1st of 1994, the first body was discovered in Port Charlotte, Florida, near the Biscayne Boulevard by two hunters. Apparently, the victim had endured unimaginable horror, and his private area was horribly mutilated by the perpetrator. Through forensics, it was confirmed that the victim was identified as 27-year-old Jerry Lombard, who went by Jerry, of Lowell, Massachusetts, who vanished from his home in Florida and was described as a drifter by his family. The John Doe that I just mentioned was discovered on January 1st of 1996 at Northport by a family's dog that brought home a male human skull to the residence in Ferrandina Street. He was a Sarasota County John Doe in Sarasota County, Florida. Then on March 7th of 1996, a man traveling down Route 75 in Northport, Florida, pulled off onto a Laramie Circle to use the bathroom. He came across a naked male corpse, face up in the shape of a cross after passing the forest line. The man immediately contacted the Northport Police Department. The victim was killed, according to the medical examiner, 10 days before he was discovered. His private area had been mutilated, and I'm not going to go into the details. He had 4 stab wounds, and the feet were covered in cuts and scrapes. The victim remained identified until June 30th of 1999. That victim was identified as William John Bill Melaragno. Then on April 17th, 1996, in Charlotte, North Carolina, another victim was identified in the surrounding woods. That victim would be identified as 25-year-old Kenneth Lee Smith. Smith's sister called the police after seeing a photo and the news of a faint tattoo still visible, and that's when she identified that as her brother, Kenneth Lee Smith. Another body was found that was horribly mutilated. This victim was identified as 21-year-old Richard Allen Montgomery, who had been SA'd by the perpetrator. Montgomery's mother informed the police that a few weeks before her son's death, that apparently Richard Allen Montgomery had met a man named Dan Conahan. That would be Daniel Owen Conahan Jr. And the media had dubbed these murders, as I said, the Hogtrail Killer. And then, while Daniel Owen Conahan Jr. awaited trial, another skeleton was found in Port Charlotte, Florida, in Charlotte County on May 22nd, 1997. It was discovered under a pepper tree near Quezada Avenue. The victim would be identified as 24-year-old William Charles Patton, who went by Billy. He disappeared in 1993. Then on October 19th, 2000, skeletal remains were found in a wooded area west of Toledo Bay, Blade at Boulevard in Northport, Florida, also in Charlotte County, North Carolina. The victim was identified as Alejandro Narciso Lago, who was last seen in 2001 in Miami. Reported missing the following month, investigators suspect that the discoveries might be tied to Daniel Owen Conahan. And then there were 8 skulls and skeletal remains that were found in a wooded area in Fort Myers, which was dubbed the Myers 8, that they suspect that Daniel Owen Conahan Jr. might be involved in. Some of these victims were 38-year-old John Blevins, 21-year-old Eric David Kohler, 24-year-old Jonathan James Tehey, 30-year-old Robert Ronald Bobby Soden. But these were victims of Fort Myers. Apparently, Daniel Owen Conahan Jr. was only put on trial for the murder of Richard Allen Montgomery. For that, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. And now, Governor Ron DeSantis has signed the warrant of execution for Daniel Owen Conahan Jr., which will be September 10th of this year. This will be 9 days after Florida carries out the execution of Harold Gene Lucas, whose crime was in Lee County. Charlotte County is the next county north of where I live. I live in Lee County, Florida. I moved here 4 years ago from Texas. But Daniel Owen Conahan Jr. has already been moved to the Florida State Prison in Stark, Florida, where his execution will be carried out. Florida is definitely going to break the pace of executions this year. This is Lane 8492. I have an associate's, bachelor's, and master's degree in criminal justice. Hope you enjoy this video and let me know what you think. Thanks.